Hey, this is Diva Q, Danielle Domovsky, and you're listening to the Firecast with Scott Roberts.
This is the Firecast podcast, episode 72, Chili Pepper Myths and Chili Pepper Science, featuring Dr. Gillian Dagan of the ABC Research Food Laboratories.
Strap yourselves in. It's time for the Firecast. This is the podcast for all foodies who love food that is cooked over a fire or feels like fire in your mouth. If you love spice, smoke, sauce, and all things savory, this is the show for you. And now, here's your host, chili head and barbecue expert, Scott Roberts.
Welcome, my fellow foodies, chili pepper fanatics, barbecuers, grillers, hot sauce fanatics, or just general fiery food fans. I bid you hello. Again, I am Scott Roberts, blogger, writer, columnist for Chili Pepper Magazine, voiceover artist, and of course, I am your host for the next 45 minutes, 60 minutes, however long this particular episode ends up going to be. It's always indeterminate length. But I always try to provide you the best, the most comprehensive info in the whole world of hot sauce, fiery foods, and barbecue. Let's go ahead and see what we've got cooking this episode. And this time out, we're talking about chili peppers, busting the myths and the science behind them. For the main Fire Talkers interview segment, I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Gillian Dagan of the ABC Research Laboratories and talk about a day in the life in a food lab, as well as talking about getting accurate Scoville numbers with high-performance liquid chromatography, talking about chili peppers, getting accurate Scoville numbers from hot sauces, you name it. Now, as you may or may not know, on my blog, scottrobertsweb.com, I've hosted the biggest, most comprehensive, most up-to-date database of the Scoville scale chart of hot peppers and hot sauces anywhere on the internet. Been doing that for several years now, and of course I get all kinds of emails and correspondence from people. Of course, it causes a lot of controversy, asking me about particular sauces and chili peppers, and they're saying, oh, Scott, this one doesn't taste that hot. How could it rate this high? Or, I think this one should be higher. Or, say, Scott, what is fill-in-the-blank sauce rate on a Scoville scale chart? Well, guess what? I do not have any HPLC equipment in my house. All that information is provided by third-party labs such as Dr. Dagan's. Again, she works for the ABC Research Laboratories in Florida, and I talk with her in depth later in this episode. Before that, my special feature of the week, I'm going to be kind of going through some chili pepper misconceptions, some myths, and busting a lot of things like that when it comes to capsaicin and hot sauce. And just a lot of the general things that have been propagating throughout the web for many years. And guess what? On YouTube, on Facebook, you'll see all this kind of stuff reported almost every day. There's a lot of half-truths and just pure lies out there. So I'll go through and dispel a lot of that. My product review this time out, I'm going to be speaking about Chili Hellion Pure Smoked Habanero Pepper Powder. And also a brief mention about NatureBox, that online snack service. I'm going to be saying a few words about that, and it's not going to be too pretty. And I'm going to give you a short, but always a good nugget of truth for a tip of the week. Now, for the housekeeping notes before I get to all those main segments, there's a lot to go through, so bear with me. There is a fiery foods and barbecue survey that I put up online that I'm running. There's still time to take it. It's a very comprehensive survey, and I urge all of you to hop on over. The website address, the URL for that survey is scottrobertsweb.com/survey. And I ask all kinds of questions as it pertains to hot sauce and barbecue and grilling and your foodie preferences for sauces and all kinds of things like that. Your input will help out what kind of focus I will put in my blog, scottrobertsweb.com, and then this very podcast, the Firecast. So if you're a chili pepper grower and lover and want more focus on that, let me know about it. If you're a barbecue and griller and want more great tips and coverage and interviews with the movers and the shakers in the whole barbecue industry, let me know about that. Now, as far as I know, no comprehensive survey has ever been given in this industry, and when I say this industry, I'm combining fiery foods and barbecue. both for chili heads and the outdoor backyard grilling and smoking fanatics. So if you've ever wanted to let your voice be known, take the survey. Again, it's at scottrobertsweb.com/survey. And I wanted to give some shout outs to a couple of sponsors. Again, I am very proud to have Suckle Busters as a sponsor of both the Firecast and scottrobertsweb.com. Great Texas-based company. Make all kinds of barbecue sauces and seasonings. Just a delicious product line overall. As a matter of fact, earlier tonight, I used some of their spicy peach barbecue sauce on some grilled chicken. I had some legs, some breasts, some thighs out there on the grill. Right towards the end of the grill, I slathered some of Suckle Buster's spicy peach barbecue sauce. Oh my God, let me tell you, that is some fantastic stuff. The owner, Dan Arnold, stand-up guy, great guy to be partnering with and sponsoring the Firecast. If you're interested in any other great products, you can check them out at sucklebusters.com. Again, that is sucklebusters.com. And something else that is helping out the show is Ray Lampy, a.k.a. Dr. Barbecue. Now, he has some low and slow barbecue classes that are available online. Now, as I kind of mentioned a couple minutes ago, I get all kinds of questions about the heat, the pungency, the Scoville ratings of particular chili peppers, hot peppers. To a lesser extent, I get some barbecue-related questions. And I don't know what it was about this past Christmas. Maybe a lot of you guys out there got some grills, got some smokers for Christmas. Maybe a lot of you novices that maybe you've seen something like Barbecue Crawl on the Travel Channel, Barbecue Pitmasters on Destination America, whatever the source may be that kind of sparked your barbecue interest. Well, I've gotten some questions from people about some barbecue classes. Yeah, there are different courses around the country that have been put on by some pitmasters. Well, some of you have been asking, well, Scott, what do you recommend as far as barbecue classes? And I honestly have to say, well, I've never taken one. So it just kind of got me curious. So I looked online for just information on various ones, different ones around the country. Of course, at this point, I can't afford to fly and take one and review it and give you the goods on what I think are the best barbecue classes put on by pitmasters around the country. Well, here comes Dr. Barbecue Ray Lampy to the rescue. Now, he has some very comprehensive barbecue classes online, which are some very high-quality HD professional video. I mean, these are not just your typical YouTube videos that you just kind of hunt and find around YouTube and just kind of watch them. They are very comprehensive, a full course that are available, chapters and bookmarks set within the videos. There are course materials with full recipes. So I was very, very impressed, and I went to Ray and I asked him about a sponsorship for the Firecast, and I was able to work up with a deal to be involved in the affiliate program for this barbecue class, which is called Dr. Barbecue's Low and Slow Barbecue Class. So this is great. A lot of barbecue classes that you would actually fly to or drive to and attend could be several $100s. This one, online, $39.95, an absolute bargain. And the beauty with this is you can watch this anytime in the day or evening. You can watch it on your laptop. You can take it outside. Watch it on your iPad or your iPhone. You can pause, watch, have it in the kitchen with you, have it outside with you by your smoker, barbecue pit. And you can even type in and ask questions. And Dr. Barbecue will answer you within a day or two. I don't know what the exact amount of time is. But you can go to any point in the video and ask a question right then and there as it pertains to what he's teaching. Just a great, great thing, great service he provides. And I will have that link in the show notes. And the shortcut for those listening, you can go to scottrobertsweb.com/bbq class. Again, that is scottrobertsweb.com/bbq class. And that will take you to my affiliate link. Yeah, I get a few bucks for each referral that I take to anyone who signs up for it. But it comes highly recommended from me, especially for the novices and the intermediates. You go through the whole course where he talks about charcoal and the different types of barbecue wood and how to make a great rub and great sauces. And he goes through the different barbecue meats, brisket, pulled pork, ribs, chicken, turkey. Comprehensive course. And again, from Dr. Barbecue, You can go to scottrobertsweb.com/bbq class to access that. And another little housekeeping note I want to make, feedback. I love to get feedback, questions, comments, suggestions, constructive criticisms from everybody. And I'm just a couple clicks away. And to be able to contact me, you can go to thefirecast.com/contact. Fill out the super simple web form and tell me what is on your mind. I urge everyone to subscribe to the Firecast. Now, I've looked at my website statistics, and less than a quarter of you subscribe via iTunes or an RSS feed. Most of you will go to one of the main websites, thefirecast.com or scottrobertsweb.com, and listen online that way. But if you subscribe via iTunes or your favorite podcast program, podcast app, there are all kinds of great ones for your phone, for your iPhone, for your Galaxy phone. And it is so easy to do that. It is so convenient just to be able to subscribe. And as soon as a new episode is out, it will automatically download it for you. You don't have to worry about going to the website. And those feeds are available at thefirecast.com. Just click on the iTunes or the RSS feed link. And one of the benefits is occasionally I will put out a special feature show, a little bonus show kind of tucked in there. Now, they're not extremely frequent, but if you want to get a little bit of bonus information, I will put that file, another short little podcast within the feed that I won't advertise anywhere else. I won't put that up on the website. That is for the benefit for all the iTunes subscribers or anyone who subscribes via a podcast catching app. So why not take advantage of it? It helps you get all the episodes that you want of the Firecast. It's completely free, so what are you waiting for? You can find all those links over at thefirecast.com. Okay, that's enough of me flapping my gums. I've done beat this one to death. Let's go ahead and get to the regular segments here on the Firecast podcast.
And now, the Foodie Tip of the Week.
All right, my tip this time out is not to ignore marbling. And I've said many times before, those little white specks, those streaks that you'll find in steaks and in meat. Yes, I know you're trying to eat lean, and I'm not a big, huge fan of big pieces of gristle and rubbery fat. But marbling, those little pieces, you'll want a lot of that in your meat, actually. Because once you grill that and you smoke it and the temperature is brought up, that fat will melt and it will make your meat nice and juicy and add all kinds of great flavor.
And now, the review of the week.
My review this time out is actually the first little review I have tonight is Chile Hellion Pure Smoked Habanero Powder. Now, although I prefer my peppers not to be heavily smoked, I'm not a big fan of chili peppers tasting like ashtrays. A moderate amount of smoking will add such a fantastic dimension to chili peppers. Of course, in the case of jalapenos, once you smoke them, they become chipotles. That's just simply what they are. All kinds of other chili peppers can benefit from smoking. They add such a wonderful flavor and aroma to foods and things like that. And now I have here Chile Hellion. They have this little, it's actually 0.3 ounce, this little tiny shaker bottle of pure smoked habanero powder. And although I don't advise anyone just to kind of open this up and stick your nose right against it and take a huge whiff, I mean, you'll end up with a coughing fit and it'll irritate the insides, the lining of your nose. But a light whiff of this is such a beautiful aroma. But this little bottle, which is no more than like 2 inches tall, is actually advertised on this little shaker bottle as approximately 500 servings. So they don't advise you to put too much. Just kind of open it up, tilt it sideways, and with your finger, just like a couple little taps, put a tiny amount on your food. And it does such a wonderful job with it, too. Adds a terrific little amount of heat. Of course, habaneros are my favorite chili peppers, so it adds that kind of medium hot heat that habanero peppers provide, plus a beautiful, delicious, smoky flavor. Now, before my diet, before the new year kind of started, before I had to kick in with that, I try this and all kinds of different things. I actually put in several shakes of this into some nacho cheese. My God, that was great. a deep, dark, rich, smoky flavor, added some great spiciness to the cheese, and instead of just your kind of plain, run-of-the-mill sweet cheese, such a kick-ass smokiness and heat to it. It's just great. Well, the thing is, what else can you really advertise? You can just kind of put this on everything. Mix it up with other seasonings. Just put a couple taps on any kind of food. Now, I would advise to put this on something like ice cream. Really, the smokiness from smoked peppers is not too good on it. I would advise kind of more fruity peppers or sweeter hot sauces containing those kind of fresh fruity peppers. But outside of any really hardcore sweet or dessert applications, this will go extremely well on. On a heat scale, probably the advised amount of application you'd put on. On a heat scale of 1 to 5, this would probably get maybe a 3, 3.5. If you go overboard, if you put a whole bunch on there, yeah, you're going to get all that habanero heat on there, and it's going to be quite a bit for a lot of people. So a few taps, maybe 3 or 4, if you want a lot of the smokiness and a lot of the heat, should be good enough for you. But the flavor and my overall rating for this, on a scale of 1 to 5, it gets a 4. So this is a nice, solid product from Chile Hellion. And this little shaker bottle can be found at the Chile Hellion site at CHILIHELLION.com. Or you can just click the link in the show notes for episode 72. And for when I kind of glance at the website, you can get a bottle of this, I think, for around $6 at this time. You may want to go to the website, kind of check for yourself to verify that you can get that. But you know what? $6 may sound like a lot for a little amount, but if this does indeed last you for 500 servings, which for chili heads, that might actually be, half a year, maybe even a whole year. It would probably definitely be worth it, but it's a good product. So I highly recommend this. And now for something I do not recommend, and that is NatureBox. If you're a big listener to the podcast, they advertise the heck out of themselves. All kinds of different podcast networks. I first heard about them on Twit, This Week in Tech with Leo Laporte. So they're spending some big dollars to kind of advertise that to not necessarily the techie audience, but those who are looking for all natural stuff, organic stuff. And kind of looking at the website, it looks like they have some attractive sign-up options. You can get 5 free samples before you actually pay for a monthly membership. The monthly membership, what you get with this for $19.95, for $20, you get 5 different snacks shipped to your house every month. And you can go to the website and choose different snacks, whatever kind you want. Salty, sweet, spicy. They have all kinds of different things. So when I initially got that the sampler pack, and I kind of thought to myself, this is not too bad. I'm not crazy about everything, but you know what? I'm going to go ahead and try this for a couple months, kind of see what I did. So on the website, you can choose your 5 different products, and they will ship those to you within a couple weeks. And then the first month's products that arrived that I actually paid for, the $19.95, and 4 out of the 5 options were substitutes. They were out of stock of the ones that I wanted. And instead of some really good, flavorful, juicy snacks, and I think I got some dried berries and some spicy praline, pumpkin seeds, and all kinds of little odd things, they substituted some of the most bland, dry, boring snacks I've ever tasted in my life. They sent me some little sesame sticks. My God, sesame-flavored snacks, didn't those get left behind in the 1960s? The rest of the stuff was as dry and flavorless and bland as could be. I was really disappointed, as were my boys. So to kind of prepare for the next month's snacks, I went ahead and selected several more options for the 5 snacks that I wanted. And guess what? They substituted stuff again. It's like, okay, isn't anything halfway decent, intriguing sounding available and in stock? I understand you're a young company, and finding, good suppliers can be sometimes hard. It could be those growing pains, especially if you get that initial boost of success. It could be hard. I'm very understanding of things like that. But again, the substitutes, oh my God, some of those dreadful, dry, bland, horrible tasting snacks you've ever had, there's no flavor to them. I mean, do I really want some flavored pretzel balls that suck all the moisture out of your mouth? No, I'm not going to do that. And you know what? For the amounts that you get, each of these little baggies full of snacks, you can do the quick math in your head. 5 of those little baggies for $20, $4 for a tiny little baggie of snacks. It's just not worth it, especially for the crap that they substituted. So you know what? Yep, I'm giving NatureBox a big thumbs down. And I would advise everyone who's intrigued by them, everyone who's heard them being advertised on a podcast, avoid these guys. You know, if you're that much into the whole organic stuff and the all-natural stuff, just go to your local health food store, or even some of the main chains of the supermarkets. They have a lot of those kinds of options. And yeah, of course, you'll pay a little bit more for that stuff. But at least when you go to your local stores, you'll be able to pick out exactly what you want and get some of the flavors you want instead of the flavorless crap that NatureBox is trying to give you. So big, huge thumbs down. Avoid them like the plague. Matter of fact, I probably would have liked to have gotten the plague in one of the baggies instead of some stale, bland, horrible-tasting sesame sticks.
And now, the fiery feature of the week.
Okay, it's time to talk about some of the chili pepper and capsaicin and hot sauce myths. Now, don't just go to some kind of vague news website or some alternative medicine website. Listen here, I have talked to the chili pepper experts, some of the people who have worked with chili peppers and capsaicin, and know what the hell they're talking about. Now, in the past, I've talked to people like Dave DeWitt and Dr. Paul Boslund of the Chili Pepper Institute in New Mexico, all kinds of chili experts over the years. And they've actually worked with the chilies, they've worked with capsaicin, and they know what's right and wrong about things. So let me just go through several of the biggest ones that continue to be spread throughout the internet. And let's try to kill these once and for all, okay? Okay, the first one, capsaicin, which of course is the chemical compound found in chili peppers and hot sauces that gives it the spiciness. Now, the myth, can it actually irritate parts of the outside body, like the skin, the eyes, the mouth, and the tongue? Now, as some people claim, can you actually get a blister from capsaicin contact? And the answer, well, yes and no. Most people do not get actual burns and blisters. They might get a little bit of redness on the skin itself. That will tend to go away. Now, for the people who actually will get a blister from the heavy, hardcore capsaicin contact, they will have what's called dermatitis. And the thing is, that's only a small percentage of the people who actually have that. For most people, yeah, I would advise to wear gloves if you're going to be cutting a bunch of really super hot chili peppers. And if you have cuts and things like that on your hands, yeah, avoid rubbing capsaicin or chili peppers or getting hot sauce in that. But it's not going to give you burns and blisters on your skin or on your tongue or anything like that. Now, on the other extreme, just like a small percentage of the people who are kind of immune to poison ivy, some people are less sensitive to capsaicin. Some are even immune. So it kind of varies from person to person. But to kind of answer the question, the majority of the people will not actually get blisters from capsaicin contact. Okay, myth number 2. I'm sure you see all those on different websites. There are news sites and blogs and alternative medicine sites, and there are lots of articles, and most of them are kind of rehashed, talking about the benefits of eating chili peppers. Sometimes they'll talk about specific chili peppers like cayenne. Now, do these chili peppers have all of these supposed benefits? The truth is, most of these health benefits are greatly exaggerated. I mean, they're not going to cure cancer, they're not going to cure this and cure that, but the truth is, chili peppers, if you eat a lot of them, and that's a prerequisite, you have to eat a lot of them, they will have high levels of vitamin C when they are green in color. And when chili peppers become ripe, they will turn red, and they will develop vitamin C when they're red. And since chili peppers have no cholesterol, they're very low in fat and calories, and high in fiber, they are very good for you. And applied topically, they are excellent antioxidants and have been known to kill some types of bacteria. So good for you, yes, and a superfood and a medical miracle, no. The next myth. Can eating too much spicy food, or capsaicin in general, produce harmful effects to your body or even kill you? And the answer is spicy food will not harm you unless you actually overdose on capsaicin. Because remember, pure capsaicin is deadly poison. And to get up to levels like that, you have to ingest lots and lots of 16 million Scoville unit capsaicin in your body. Now, when you're eating habaneros, bucholokias, Trinidad scorpions, Carolina reaper peppers, and they, on a Scoville skill chart, could range from 100,000 Scoville heat units all the way up to 1.5 million or even 2 million. Eating a lot of that is not going to harm you. It's not going to kill you. Now, interestingly enough, C.L. Weineck had once conducted a study that was published in Drug and Chemical Toxicology that examined the overdose potential of Tabasco pepper sauce. Now, he concluded that a person of average height would have to consume nearly half a gallon of the sauce to actually overdose and become unconscious. The acute fatal toxicity dose for a 150-pound person would have to be 13 grams of pure crystalline capsaicinoids. So unless you plan to drink a half a gallon of Tabasco for whatever reason, or if you're going to consume dozens and dozens and dozens of the super hot chili peppers, it's not going to have long-term harmful effects to you. But of course, I advise everyone to stay away from pure capsaicin. It's not something to mess around with. You shouldn't one-up everybody in your YouTube videos. Just stay away from that and enjoy chili peppers for what they are, food. The next myth: can chili peppers play a role in causing heartburn, stomach ulcers, or triggering acid reflux? This question is near and dear to me. I have had acid reflux since I was about 12 or 13 years old. It's something I've had to deal with. I've eaten Tums and Rolaids all my life. Now, since the 1990s, I've been on medications like Acifex, Pepcid. Now I'm on Prilosec, and that seems to be doing very well for me. I just take one of those pills once a day, and I'm fine for the most part. Now, I've talked to several gastroesophageal doctors, several chili pepper experts, and they all agree spicy foods, capsaicin, does not cause any of this. Now, a lot of people will come up to me and I will tell them why I have acid reflux. Oh, well, no wonder you eat all that spicy food. That's going to kill you. That's going to cause, no wonder it causes all that. No, it doesn't. It's acidic foods. It's things like tomatoes and tomato sauce. It's a lot of greasy foods that will trigger that heartburn in me. Now, the thing is, if you have a pre-existing condition such as an ulcer, yes, chili peppers can irritate that, but they do not cause GERD, which is gastroesophageal reflux disease, or anything like that. So if you have heartburn, ulcers, acid reflux, see a doctor about that. You should definitely get that treated for a problem just like I have. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to cut down on hot sauce or chili peppers. It's not going to make it worse, nor does it actually cause that type of stuff. The next one: can beer or water work as well as milk at reducing the burning sensation caused by chilies and hot sauce? And the answer, no. Now, cold beverages, they can give the illusion of cooling down your mouth or your throat for a few moments, but the burn definitely returns. And as a matter of fact, things like that, things like water or beer, will actually spread the capsaicin around a little bit more and make the problem worse. So to actually cut down on the burning effects caused by capsaicin, what you want to have is some very fatty dairy products. Milk, sour cream, cheese, because they will contain a protein called casein. And that protein will actually help soothe the burn caused by chili peppers and hot sauce. The next myth: seeds contain the heat of a chili pepper. Well, actually, that's wrong. The vast majority of the heat in a chili pepper is in the placental tissue, which is the inside middle part, which is where the stem of a chili pepper was hooked onto. That long, pointy middle section on the inside, that contains a bulk of the capsaicin. And of course, since the seeds are attached to it, yeah, some of the heat might rub off onto the seeds, but the seeds themselves contain no heat. So if you're cooking, chopping up chili peppers, it's that inside placenta that you'll want to avoid. And just kind of use the outside membrane. And you know what? If a few seeds get in your recipes and you want to avoid the heat, it probably won't affect it. And the next question: what about the waivers that some companies or restaurants make you sign before doing a spicy food challenge? What if there's a wing contest? And the myth is that they're actually necessary. And the truth is they're more of a publicity stunt than anything. But the thing is, it's very unfortunate in today's society, people are lawsuit happy. And they want to sue people for this and that. And if they happen to have any stomach cramping, or they'll probably blame all kinds of things for the wing eating contest or chili pepper eating contest that they just got involved with. And for whatever reason, they could get a bug up their ass and decide to sue the restaurant. Well, the thing is, a sign waiver is a way for restaurants to kind of cover their asses. And if something ever goes to court, a sign waiver could convince a jury that the injured person acted on his or her own volition. So, are they really needed? Not really, but the thing is, it's just a way to prevent any potential lawsuits. Here's another myth. Hatch chilies are from Hatch, New Mexico. And guess what? Yep, that is busted. Of course, there is a town in New Mexico called Hatch. And these chilies, well, they're just simply named after the town. The Hatch chilies are a very, very low heat chili. They're very popular throughout the southeastern U.S., sold in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. But the truth is there are not enough chilies, not enough land within a 5-mile radius of Hatch, New Mexico to count for all the chili peppers that are named Hatch. That is simply alleged. It's just a myth. Myth. Certain ethnicities are more immune to the oleoresin capsicum found in pepper spray. And the answer, that is false. There are no ethnicities, no races, no groups, no African Americans, no Latinos that are more or less sensitive to OC, the actual capsicum found in pepper spray, than any other ethnicities. Now the thing is, sensitivity to it is purely dependent upon the individual, as well as the amount and the type of intoxicants the individual is under the influence of. So it's just kind of like the question earlier. It's just really based upon the person and his or her sensitivity to it. But it doesn't matter what race or ethnic group you belong to, we pretty much have the same sensitivity to capsaicin. Here's another big myth. Hot sauce could clean off copper pennies. And guess what? It's false. It's actually the vinegar in the hot sauce. Now, things like tomato ketchup are equally as effective at cleaning copper pennies. I mean, there are actually a couple places online you can look for people who could take a dirty, corroded penny, just let it sit in hot sauce or vinegar or tomato ketchup for a while, and it will come out looking clean and sparkly and everything like that. Well, that in fact is the vinegar present within the sauce. Myth. Chili peppers can warm you up by eating them and rubbing them on your skin. Well, yes and no. The capsaicin in chilies is actually a rubefacient, which is an agent that brings blood to the surface of the skin, kind of giving a small degree of warmth because of the increased circulation. So it might give a little bit of a warming feeling, but eating them has no effect at warming you up at all. Myth. Capsaicin could destroy taste buds. Well, capsaicin actually has nothing to do with your taste buds. Of course, taste buds, there's the 5 senses, the 5 types of taste that you could perceive, which are, salty, sweet, bitter, and umami. But the thing is, there are capsaicin receptors in your mouth and your tongue, and they are just simply triggered by the capsaicin, and they send the pain signals to the brain. Or it makes you think, oh, it's burning, there's an actual match or a fire inside my mouth. But the thing is, capsaicin does not permanently destroy taste buds, as like hair, they are constantly being replaced by the body. There you have it, most of the chili pepper myths dispelled. So what do you think? Do you have any myths that you don't think have ever been answered? Any types of chili pepper hot sauce claims that no one's ever addressed? Well, let me know about them. Go over to thefirecast.com/contact, fill out the web form, and let me know what myths, what misconceptions, what claims about hot sauces and chili peppers that you are unsure of. So we're going to go ahead and take a little break in this episode. When I come back, I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Gillian Dagan of the ABC Research Laboratories and talk about food labs and Scoville testing. So stick around.
Texas is not all sagebrush and deserts. Sure, we do have a few tumbleweeds out in West Texas, but we've got mountains, plains, forests, beaches, and much more. But more than that, Texas has the most interesting people, and that is what Voices of Texas is all about. I'm Matthew Hinman, and each week I interview an interesting Texan, likely one you've never heard of. But these are the people who do amazing things in their communities, or perhaps people who inspire or motivate. Check it out over at voicesoftexas.com. Voices of Texas, the podcast about Texans.
Having a friendly, relatable voice can mean all the difference in your marketing efforts. Let Scott Roberts' voiceover be that voice. I can give you the goods, whatever your need is, whether it be for commercials, podcasts, voicemail systems, and on-hold messages, business presentations, websites, corporate narration, audiobooks, and more. If you require a real, personable, down-to-earth voiceover artist, then look no further. You can find out more at scottrobertsvoice.com. That's scottrobertsvoice.com.
Looking for a straightforward user interface and a cost-effective, feature-filled multi-track recording software? Call off the search! Mixcraft from Acoustica has exactly what you're looking for. It's time to include reliable audio creation and editing software with real punch into your projects. Check out Mixcraft now over at acoustica.com/Mixcraft and start a new generation of audio creation and editing today.
Sucklebusters is the best in Texas barbecue rubs and sauces. Owner Dan Arnold knows his stuff, and Sucklebusters products have proven it by winning hundreds of awards, including a pair of back-to-back first-place sauce wins at the American Royal. Their Texas gunpowder seasoning is a staple around the Roberts household, and I cannot wait to try some of their brand new offerings for 2015, including their Wild Thang Wild Game Rub and their competition honey glaze and finishing sauce. Oh yeah! You yourself can check out Sucklebusters now at over 300 retail locations, or by going to sucklebusters.com and find out why Sucklebusters is bustin' with flavor.
We're back, and now here's more of the Firecast with Scott Roberts. And now the Fire Talkers interview.
Today I'm speaking with Gillian Dagan, PhD, of the ABC Research Laboratories. Dr. Dagan, thanks for joining me today. How's everything going on in your world?
Very good. How about you, Scott?
I'm doing excellent. Now, to kind of start off here, I don't know who it was, who I started corresponding with at ABC Research Laboratories. It might have been Ryan there, but it kind of got the seed planted in my head. For a long time, I wanted to speak to someone at a food lab. So I really appreciate you being on the Firecast today. Now, there's all kinds of questions I want to ask you to kind of dig in as far as what a food lab does and high-performance liquid chromatography as it pertains to the Scoville scale. But before we get into the nitty-gritty questions that the chili pepper lovers and the Scoville heat freaks will no doubt want to hear answered, first, give me the general overview of what you guys do at a food research laboratory.
ABC Research Laboratories is a food testing lab, and we are an ISO 17025 accredited lab, which means we have the highest in quality assurance procedures in place, and we're audited every other year at a minimum to keep that accreditation. We do all different types of testing on any food or beverage or feed or botanical you can think of. So It might be something like Scoville, at the heat index that we're talking about today. We might do nutritional analysis, so calories, fat, protein, all of those things you're used to seeing on a nutritional facts panel on a retail product. Mm-hmm. We do microbiological testing for pathogens. We do shelf life studies. We do sensory work. So we do a big variety. Pretty much anything you can think to do to a food, we can test.
Of course, I took a look at your website, and the list of the services you guys provide is enormous. Of course, I didn't know what half the stuff was. But can you tell me what the typical day at ABC Research Laboratory is like?
Sure. So On a typical day at ABC, we have samples that arrive to the lab 6 days a week. So Monday through Saturday, we're receiving samples from clients. And those samples, most of them are coming in via FedEx or UPS. We do have some private courier services that bring samples to us. And every once in a while, we'll have a local client that'll drop a sample off. And the samples are received and logged into our software system. And that's really where the chain of custody starts. So chain of custody for us is very important to make sure that we know what the sample is, we know what tests we're going to perform, we know who the client is. And it also allows us as a confidential lab to maintain that confidentiality, of course, in an outward-facing manner. I can't tell you, exactly who I do business with on an everyday basis, but also internally, we assign random sample group numbers to samples, so our analysts don't know whose samples they're running either. So there's never any bias there. So the sample group number is assigned, and then the samples are divided up between the different labs. So maybe some need micro-testing, maybe some need chemistry testing, maybe some need both, maybe something coming in for a project. So they're dispersed, and then for microbiological testing, we'll start all of the analyses that day because time is of the essence when you're talking about microbiological testing. And then for chemistry testing, we do batch our samples. So we will put it in a queue to be run either that day or in the next couple of days. Over the next few days, our staff is composed of food scientists, analytical chemists, microbiologists. They work their magic and do the variety of tests that's needed on a sample, and then the results are sent back out to a client.
Excellent. My next question is, of course, I get a lot of different foodie fans listening to the Firecast podcast. A nice percentage of them are hot sauce makers, amateur hot sauce makers, barbecue sauce makers. A lot of people trying to break into this business. So not only for those people who are wanting to make those types of sauces, but who are trying to break into the industry and sell it. What are some of the most important food safety tips that you could advise people on?
Sure. So specifically for sauce manufacturers, depending on your locale, every state has a Department of Agriculture that expects to see certain things from food producers in that state, even if it's a cottage industry. And I would say we actually do a lot of business with small sauce manufacturers, and it could be getting them a process authority letter, which is a letter that you would need to have on hand that talks about your thermal process for your sauce. So if you heat it and maybe bottle it hot to make it a shelf-stable product, there are certain food safety guidelines around that. If somebody is mixing a fresh sauce that they don't heat, I'm sure all of your listeners, if they create sauces already, know the importance of acid. So using things like vinegar to drop that pH for food safety concerns and to ensure that the product isn't going to spoil. And then, if somebody's making a fresh sauce that maybe isn't that acidic, that they package it with a limited shelf life of 14 days. That's protocol.
And now kind of branching off from that topic, and this is probably more for the amateurs listening, but if something is very acidic in a product, let's just say vinegar is the ultimate example, or even a citrus, a lime juice or something like that, that will be far more shelf stable, correct?
Right. We talk about different microbiological hurdles that we can build into a food product. So when we talk about, that in designing a product, that one microbiological hurdle would be the lowering of pH, and very specifically below 4.6. The more acidic that we can get a food, the least likely we are to support microbiological growth. Another hurdle would be a cooking process, pasteurization of a product would create a shelf-stable product. If people choose to use preservatives, that's another microbiological hurdle. So it's just one of many that somebody could use to make a shelf-stable product, or at least extend the shelf life of a refrigerated product.
And now here's a controversial question I wanted to ask you. Now, from a purely scientific standpoint, is there anything wrong with GMO foods? I know the big thing nowadays is eating organic, all natural type stuff. Now, you as a food scientist, what do you think all about it?
In my professional opinion, we have been dictating genetic lines in plants for centuries. We've bred plants using different techniques to maybe select for a more drought-resistant product, or to select for, better flavor or a better color in a certain fruit or vegetable. We've done a certain amount of genetic modification over the years. It's taken us longer than we would have liked because we're talking about working through that entire plant life cycle to get to the next generation. And I think it's fantastic that we figured out a way to do that in a more efficient manner. In my opinion, we do have a hunger problem globally. It is a distribution problem, but in some regions, not only is it distribution, but also just the ability to be able to grow food there. And so if we're talking about creating a more, let's say, drought-resistant crop that can be grown in more regions of the world to feed more people, I'm all for it.
Okay, very good. Very fair way to put that. And now to a topic that, of course, would be of great interest to hardcore chili heads and hot sauce lovers. And, of course, I'm talking about the Scoville scale. Now, we all know it's named after Wilbur Scoville, who was a scientist, a pharmacist, way back at the turn of the 20th century. Now, he originally created the Scoville organoleptic test. Now, could you describe that original test to everybody?
Yeah, so the term organoleptic, when we use that as food scientists, that just talks about a sensory experience, so actually consuming the food or smelling the food. Or feeling how that food feels in your mouth. So the original Scoville organoleptic test used human subjects and their opinions on the intensity of that heat in a product or in a pepper. So if you talk to a sensory scientist or a food scientist that specializes in that, we will tell you that humans are some of the best instruments that we have. However, they have to be either incredibly well trained to do their job and express what they're experiencing using a specific lexicon and a very specific numerical scale, or in the case of some other type of sensory tests, you use a very large number of consumer panelists. Now, something like the Scoville test, those were trained tasters that knew the lexicon, knew the scale and what they were using, and they were trained by looking at increasing concentrations of extracted capsaicinoids. You're pretty much, from a scientific standpoint, you're building a standard curve with panelists. You're teaching them what number on a numerical scale would correspond to each of the known compounds that you're giving them. So they're learning a scale and then would rate an unknown sample somewhere on that scale and give it that Scoville heat index.
Now, I probably wouldn't be going out on a limb to say that this test at best is highly subjective and probably quite inaccurate, especially since what is probably very hot to one person's tongue may not be hot to someone else. Heat tolerance between two individuals could vary greatly, and even one's own heat tolerance itself could rise and fall just depending on how much spicy food they eat once they get used to things like that. Now, something more accurate has come along, and that is high-performance liquid chromatography. Now, why don't you go ahead and give everybody the high-level overview on high-performance liquid chromatography, and then actually take us through the whole process of how you determine how pungent something is and how much capsaicin is found in a particular food.
Sure. So what you said about the organoleptic test is correct. There's a lot of variability when we look at using panelists. And as you can imagine, some things are so hot that it's going to completely ruin my palate for the next, 3 hours, let's say. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to determine if anything's hot or not hot after I eat certain foods that have a very high Scoville index. So it's just a really tough test to get repeatable, accurate, precise information out of. So people did look at using high-performance liquid chromatography. We do that test at my lab, and high-performance liquid chromatography can be used for a variety of analytical methods. Now, it's called HPLC for short, and what we're seeing in any HPLC setup is using a series of solvents in a liquid form, so liquid solutions, to mix with a sample, and as it flows through a column of either a known pore size or a known polarity, that column is taking the sample that's traveling in that solvent, and it's starting to separate that sample into different partitions. So it may be partitioning based on the size of the molecules present. It may be partitioning based on the polarity of the molecules present. So for some reason or another, different molecules in the mix have a harder time passing through the column. So maybe if we're talking about pore size, for instance, little tiny molecules would be able to zoom right through the column and come out on the other side very, very quickly, while larger ones would take have a longer residence time in making their way through that column. So you get this partitioning of the sample. And so at the end of the column, when all of these, as all of these compounds exit over time, we use some kind of detector. And so some people use ultraviolet light and look at the response from different compounds coming out with UV. Some people use fluorescence as a detector. There are a number of different detectors out there. Currently, we use a fluorescence detector to look at capsaicinoids. And so what we're separating in let's say, a hot sauce or a pepper sample, we're separating those different capsaicinoids into different partitions, and then we're measuring the relative amount of each. And there's a formula by which you calculate that Scoville Heat Index when you look at the relative amounts of each of those compounds.
Now, when testing chili pepper specifically, what parts of the chili pepper pod do you use? Do you use the whole thing? And then how does somebody prepare a chili pepper for you? Let's just say that they have a candidate for the world's hottest chili pepper. They've been growing it for a while. They make sure that it is stable through many generations. And then they want to send it into a food lab like yours.
Sure. So we are going to use the entire pepper unless otherwise instructed. Now, somebody could tell us, please exclude the seeds if they didn't want that part included. It really would be specified how we would, or what parts we would use. Once we knew what parts we were using, we would grind up the entire sample. So, really homogenize it, just completely obliterate it so we have a homogeneous sample. And we have very high-powered, pretty much food processors that we use to do that. Then that sample would be put into a solvent. We usually use, we use methanol and acetonitrile in our HPLC protocol. So we would add that to the solvent and then put that on the HPLC, and that solution would be pumped through that column we talked about, and the capsaicinoids separated and quantified.
Okay. Do you think an accurate Scoville rating could be gotten just from one single isolated chili pepper pod, as opposed to several different tests made over a period of time with several different pods? Let's just say somebody would make a claim like, oh, I have the 2.3 million Scoville pod here. Now, in your opinion, how accurate would that be as opposed to testing many different pods over a long period of time?
I think if you wanted to get a really accurate view, you would look at multiple peppers from that plant over time. So, there may be some seasons of the year where that plant is putting out a hotter pepper or not as hot of a pepper. So we definitely encourage, and this goes for any analytical test, the more samples you have, or and you can run them separately and then look at all the different results, or if you collect samples over time and you want to composite those, where we would blend them all together and then run the test one time. Either way, you're averaging data and you're using multiple data points, and so that's always going to lend to a higher level of accuracy.
Now, I've heard some anecdotal stuff from some pretty reputable hot sauce makers that it is very hard or almost even impossible to get an accurate Scoville number from hot sauces as opposed to testing chili peppers. Now, can you get any type of accurate rating from a hot sauce by putting regular HPLC testing on it?
It can be a little bit harder just because, in a hot sauce we have what we call matrix interference. So when you look at a food, obviously foods are very complex. And I'm looking for maybe just one or two different compounds in a food. But I have to read through the rest of the food matrix that's there. So if you're talking about, a pepper, that's a very, very clean matrix. There may be only a couple things in my way when I'm looking for my capsaicinoids. If we're talking about a hot sauce, there may be salt, a multitude of peppers there. There may be oil. There might be an acid, vinegar or lime juice. Different spices might be kind of in my way. So all of those things are what kind of gets in our way, and we call it matrix interference. So we have to be careful when we work with complex food items like a sauce. We can get reliable data. We do actually Scoville testing on a variety of sauces, seasoning blends, but I will say we have perfected our methods over time to deal with that matrix interference.
Gotcha. And in your opinion, they would be just as accurate as testing on a chili pepper would be?
Yeah, I think so. We get very repeatable results and very accurate results.
Okay, one question I get a lot of, and that is there any way to test the pungency of other quote-unquote hot or strong items, such as horseradish, wasabi, cinnamon, onions, garlic, or anything like that. Now, I know none of them have the capsaicin that chili peppers do, so you really can't have the high-performance liquid chromatography testing on them. But are there any other types of equivalent tests that you can run to get the pungency?
There are. Cinnamon in particular, there are compounds that we would look for. We actually look at cinnamon oil and different cinnamon products for their potency. So there are other compounds that are not capsaicinoids that can be pinpointed to look at these different things. Cinnamon is definitely one that we do. Horseradish and wasabi, I believe there is something you could look at. You can strike that from the record because I don't really know off the top of my head. But cinnamon and things like pure vanilla extracts and stuff like that, all of those have very distinctive flavor compounds that can be quantified.
Okay. You mentioned, of course, HPLC services for people. If somebody wanted to submit a hot sauce or if they had a chili pepper that they wanted to get Scoville numbers for, how should people go about doing that?
Easiest thing to do is to give us a call. We will kind of talk to you about what you're trying to ship us, whether you're trying to ship us a glass or a plastic bottle of sauce or you're trying to ship us a pepper. So we'll provide you with the right way to ship us those items where they're going to come and they're going to be intact and still in good shape. And we always provide a price quote and talk to people about how long it's going to take to get their results. And really, that's that. It's fairly simple and we can get you started.
And about how long does it take? A couple days, couple weeks?
Usually about 7 business days is what somebody can expect.
Well, that certainly would be helpful to a lot of people. And I don't think there's a week that goes by that I don't hear from somebody asking me personally if I could do some Scoville testing on a chili pepper or hot sauce themselves. Well, I kind of tell them I don't have that kind of equipment myself. So it's good to know that there are some food labs like yourselves that could help people in that regard. Well, Dr. Dagan, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me today.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon. And for more information about ABC Research Laboratories, you can find them online at abcr.com. Very simple URL to remember. abcr.com. Take a look at their services. Let them know if you want particular things tested out, and they would be happy to help you out. And the product review, the Chili Hellion Pure Smoked Habanero Powder, could be found at chilihellion.com. And again, as a reminder, all these links could be found in the show notes at thefirecast.com or scottrobertsweb.com. Just look for this particular episode number, episode 72. And any of the main links that are mentioned in this episode or any other Firecast podcast episode are all listed for your convenience. So that way, if you're listening in your car, at the gym, as you're out gardening, out and about, you won't have to worry about writing down all these links to check out later. Just go to the show notes, and it's all listed out there for your convenience. And speaking of links, as I always say, don't forget to go over to my main blog, scottrobertsweb.com, my main hub of operations on the web. Has been for several years. And you can find me on all the social media sites. Facebook, you can like my page at facebook.com/scottrobertsweb. You can follow me. My Twitter handle is simply Scott Roberts. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/scottrobertsweb. And I'm also on Google Plus and Pinterest and many others. Just simply go to my main site, scottrobertsweb.com, and there are links to all of them. And as a reminder, take the Fiery Foods and Barbecue Survey. Let your voice be known. If you want more type of this coverage and that coverage, this is the perfect opportunity to have a voice in things, to kind of sway and influence the direction of both my blog and the Firecast podcast. And also, don't forget to rate and review my show on iTunes. And to do so, simply go to thefirecast.com/iTunes. It will take you to the iTunes webpage. Click the blue button on the left-hand side. That will actually open up the iTunes app on your computer, Windows or Mac. And you can go in, listen to all the episodes, and plus give a star rating for the show. Give a short little review. Every one of those will help give exposure to the Firecast, which will allow me to give more helpful information like the one I provided in this episode. I will be able to talk to more people, talk about chili peppers and all the top barbecue folks and all the hot sauce companies that need exposure. So every little bit of help is much appreciated. So therefore, that wraps up episode 72 of the Firecast podcast. God bless you all, and until next time, remember, keep it burning.
Thanks for listening to the Firecast. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to this podcast via iTunes or at the official website at thefirecast.com. Thanks again, and remember, keep it burning.